Lights?
All right, have that.
I will call the December 13th, 2023 Mapleton School District Number 32 School Board meeting to order. And the stamp of flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Any changes on our agenda? Hearing none. None. Public comment on agenda items. Not seeing a whole lot of public. District reports. How about the middle school, high school report?
Can I go? Oh, I changed the order. Can I go elementary and then middle school, high school? Anybody offended?
How about it?
I have a presentation with elementary with lots of fun stuff. So, oh, remind me something. Okay.
Oh, I guess we should turn these slides on.
Yeah. Oh, no,
There's one right here.
I should just
I mean, just the
something.
one up here. Yeah.
Nice work, lightweight.
Windows on, windows off, windows, lights, something. That's all. Stay tuned for my presentation.
Should be able to clap.
Do you like those things?
Windows forever.
It's finding the device. Hold on a second. Sorry. Garrett. Garrett Blanchard, ELA teacher.
Did we ever get to meet him? Did he come to the
Yes,
Yeah.
the one he was supposed to come to, he had an emergency. I'll get him invited to January. Yeah, I forgot to follow up with him. I think, did we get everybody else now?
I don't know. Find out in Burnham.
Yeah. Jeanette, I think we got everybody else. I think I forgot to follow up with him, so. Had him crossed off my list.
Oh, wasn't it just, I missed that. I don't think we met the counselor guy. What's her name?
Oh, Miles. I don't think so.
Did
either.
he zoom in? We didn't do that? Okay, so I'll get those two for January. That's my goal. I had a list that I crossed them all off of and I didn't go back to say that actually didn't happen. So,
Okay.
my bad. Okay, so it was fun today. I went through and asked, I got to everybody but Clara. So we're low on the 5th and 6th. The next report show 5th and 6th will be highlighted. But I just said, I liked this approach of like, hey, board meeting, what do you want to tell the board that's happening in your class? And it was so exciting. I said class or the school. And I was just like, oh, we're doing this and doing that. And it led to these great conversations. And so I followed back up and took a couple pictures of some things. This is my notes, I'm sorry. And don't let me tell you everything they said because it was fun and long and we have more to do. But it was literally just in my note. There it is. Okay. Sorry, had to drive from over there. So literacy was a lot of the talk, and instead of going grade by grade, I wanted to share just a couple cool highlights of the literacy. Welcome. And so our kinder and first have finished Module 1 and started Module 2 in the new ELA curriculum, we're excited about Module 2. For all grade levels, it's nonfiction and with a science focus. And so kinder's doing weather, and first grade sun, moon, stars with connections to weather, so that next year they bring in some of their knowledge and then expand it on there. And then kinder first. Second through 5th and 6th are finishing up the end of their Module 1s. So I grabbed a couple of pictures here. The two pieces of student work on the left in 3rd grade, they're writing their paragraphs about school challenges around the world, and they've been learning through all these different texts, and they're presenting their writing to their peers. And we're up in front of the room today, and our shyest kids who didn't want to go got supported, and they got up there and did it. It was so cool to watch. And the class listens and then gives I'm gonna blank on it. Glows and grows. And so they listen carefully and then give a glow based on something that they appreciate in the writing, and then speaks to grow, both in the like handwriting, it's cute, they get drawn to like, I like how you're spacing between your words, and we're shifting that to like, and in the content, what do you appreciate and what could they add in their writing. So these are two examples. The bottom one, I just wanted to point out that last sentence on the bottom, Zimbabwe's challenges, they had to take donkey carts because there are some, I can't remember the very end, something.
Roads. A few something roads.
Yes, okay, so you all can read it. There are a few paved roads. Yeah, paved roads. And this is a kiddo who has missed a lot of instruction and has refused to write anything without knowing it's spelled right. And so every single thing, how do I spell it? How do I spell it? And not writing, and was like, I'm doing this on my own, and this is what came out, and this is like a huge step in development towards both reading and writing, and it was so exciting to see. And they got up and shared it today, and the whole class was giving bros about sounding the words out and that they could read it right along with them, and it was so cool. So anyway, we're celebrating that.
English language is, it totally makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Everything.
And then this is third grade, no, just kidding, second grade. We got in a cool conversation. This is actually a narrative about the fall. They're hanging up in the lobby between the two classrooms, and went through a whole writing cycle of rough draft and feedback and typing, and then going through it again. And so an iterative process there. Separate from the curriculum, but making ties to it. And so a couple teachers and I had this great conversation about how this process is being modeled within the curriculum at the next grade level and stuff. And it was just this cool conversation came out of it. And I just wanted to share, like, literacy, specifically writing, is happening in lots of places. Second grade is finishing their focus on schools around the world, and they're writing books about why school matters to read to the kindergartners in the next couple weeks after the break. So just some cool stuff happening. Let's see. And then just to share, K2 is really working closely together on foundational skills and getting similar systems in place across the classrooms. And they were sharing, like, this is the first time we're working as a team versus separate grade levels, really in depth. And we're like providing a sub for one teacher to go watch another do rotations so that they can see how they do it and then pull some of that learning back into their classroom. And feels good. And then 3-5 are asking similar questions, so we're getting them together and kind of building that knowledge, and it feels good right now. So I think I said all this. Just the other, I didn't share what the, so fourth is finishing essays about poets and writing their own poetry, and then fifth and sixth are finishing their module is on Esperanza Rising, and they're writing monologue, and they'll perform a monologue of a character response to an event in the story, and have read a lot of different text around human rights issues. So that looked like it skipped something, but that's just a picture laying over that slide. So in social emotional learning, this is the board. I don't know if everybody can see that. I can see it really well on my computer, but I forgot to take the picture of the otter, but we have this otter award that at each month they'll get awarded to a class demonstrating the school values. And first and second grade won it first and have a pizza party tomorrow. A lot of these, so this is working independently and working together. Sportsmanship has come up a lot in just our kids kind of are really competitive, and also that turns into fighting a lot of times or arguing. And so working on both taking turns, you see in here for first and second grade, But a lot of these are tied into sportsmanship and turn taking and support and those types of things. Respecting others, choosing partners, and then there's this really cool teach a skill activity that's part of the Harmony curriculum. And so our older students are taking a skill that they're confident in. They have to plan and put forward a series of steps and then teach the class how to do this. And there were some really cool examples that we were talking through.
Teach their own class?
Today. They teach the peers in their class.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going through each taking turns. And they're doing that in pairs, I believe. At least some of the examples we were talking about were in pairs. So I'm assuming that's true. And so they're working collaboratively and then teaching everyone. So let's see, did I get any other pictures? Those are the ones. I just like going and connecting. Lots of...
What are the two on the bottom?
Yeah, attentive listening and
Yeah.
communication skills.
Okay.
And then lots of conversation. There's one of the conversations about collaborative conversations are a part of a lot of the curriculum with the ELA, English Language Arts, and shared sentence starters and giving feedback to peers and those types of things. I'm seeing it play out at each grade level. And I'm just excited about once it's like kids are moving across having those same experiences. There are, trying to see, third grade just finished up Kids in the Kitchen with SNAP-Ed and 4-H, and Sarah was saying it was exciting to watch. They did a lot of their own measuring skills and making new recipes, and she saw kids who are most timid of trying new foods try and like healthy foods that they helped prepare, and it was like an 8-week program that just finished on Tuesday. And then just to connect that in, like it's fun, like hopefully every month you're like, oh, something new happened.
This is pretty huge.
And these were planted first, so they're growing the furthest of any on campus, but like every office you go into, you can see what order they were done in classroom. And then the big one by the door just got, I don't even know if they were seeding it this week.
Today when I was here.
Yeah, it's been going all week, so it'll start to look like that in larger scale by the door. So just to tie that over here. There were lots of updates about math and just more hands-on usage, especially at K1-2 of using math manipulatives. And then across all the grade levels, really digging into studying traditions, and at Kinder 1-2, I'll say packets. I don't have a better word right now. Information was sent home for a project that went back and forth with families. Is that the right way to say that? And then kids came and presented their holiday traditions to their peers and were learning from each other and really recognizing each other. And they stood up and presented kind of in an interview format based on what the information they had like worked on with their families at home. And so really bringing that like local and like cultural assets into it from this community into the classroom and acknowledging each other, and it was cool. So let's see.
That's personal, their own traditions?
Yeah, their own traditions, and that so like across their, let's see, obviously Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Diwali were all traditions that our kids celebrate. That have come into the classroom, and then even some more specific ones. What was the one they were telling me? Yule. The teacher didn't know about it and did some side research, and then came back and helped the student teach about Yule to the class. So, yeah. So anyway, those were the fun updates. Hopefully, I did. Hope you get a little picture into what the teachers are excited about with their students, and and the learning. So, I didn't mean to do that, but that was the last slide on that. Elementary big picture. Tomorrow there is the Sluggo reading assembly, and Rhodey Court, we have a junior court member who's going to get acknowledged there, and they're just like kind of the, and this time of year is kind of lots of celebrations happening. I'll transition to over here. Similarly, tomorrow we have the traditional white elephant gift exchange thing that is, if you've never seen it, it's worth seeing. Awards, quarter one awards ceremony, and our Christmas carolers, I believe, are going to sing to the whole school. And let's see, we have stuff growing everywhere. The first tiny home is getting picked up tomorrow during second or third period, and loaded up and taken to Eugene to be part of the outdoor housing community.
Where is it?
On right this second, or where is it going? In the Industrial Arts Roll-Up building. They've been building that inside of there. Yeah, tonight. Yeah, let's walk out there. I'll go unlock it and you can see where we're at. Yeah. And we are doing a second house that is funded fully outside of our funding. And we'll launch that in January. And that one we're working with, right now there's early conversation about potentially with Swiss Home to place it at the church there. So
is it getting press?
That's what
ours, so that project is part of I believe the larger project's called Constructing a Brighter Future, and it has press all over the county for all the schools and districts that have been part of it. So us specifically inside that, I don't know if we have like, we're listed as one of 16 districts participating.
Does the Siuslaw News come up here and check this out?
I don't know that they're going anywhere to check anything out right now.
They'll take submissions from us, but they aren't like sending writers out, is what I kind of heard.
Yeah.
So is somebody submitting something?
There's some documentation happening in all the PBLs, and so I don't have a good answer for that, but I will follow up and ask that. And in the second one, that's what we're getting better at, is like documentation of projects especially by students. This is part of integrated learning. Like, it's not just the building, it's all the pieces of the process, and we'll keep going through it. So I don't have a yes answer to like, yep, we have these things we can send out right now, but definitely part of that process.
I mean, how do we institutionalize that? Because that paper is the only window out, really.
Yeah.
I mean, besides Facebook, and that's not.
Yeah. We had an exciting thing developing a week before they sold it, and that needs to get picked back up. But it feels like a very different structure right now, and where like I could text Zach anything last year, right, and he'd show up and do a story,
right,
and I can text Zach about a lot of things, but not that. So he is still in touch with them and looking for ways to lead some of that documentation. So he's still an avenue to that. It's still, we got to find the right process through it. So, yeah. Let's see. Any other? Yeah, music. Good.
Oh
yeah.
no, I've been feeling the lack of that.
Yeah.
I've been last couple of years, we've been seeing a lot of Mapleton stories in there, and it's been really awesome. And there's nothing. And so I do think it would be something that it would help. It helps to get like the word out about the things we're doing. So that would be good.
Yeah. Now that they've landed, like it was real. I mean, Savesley and us met. We had like something set up for kids to submit work and do all these things, and had carved out a couple pages in each issue and all. I mean, like it felt good, and then literally the next week was like, oh, and it sold. Like, and I don't think the people we were working with knew that was gonna happen, so.
What about interacting or interfacing with like radio, like KLCC or KXCR? They do these like community things every week. I know that when we were doing like the AEP6 study, like we were on the radio station multiple times, and then the other one in KCFM or whatever, that's in Florence.
KCST.
KCST, KXCR, maybe KLCC. I know KLCC has talked a little bit about the overall project, like the housing project, but I know that like the school districts haven't been named in that, so maybe like they already know. But just lots of folks still, you know, have the radio on in the background. I know the radio's not like, newspapers aren't like super popular anymore either, but just having some of the current events being in whatever is currently still being active, it's still active.
And they all have like press release, like if you write a press release, you can submit it via one address and it goes to a bunch of different outlets. And that is a way to at least then they see it's a story, and if they want to pursue it, they can follow up. Sometimes they'll just read the press release, but
And submitting a press release is also free. So that could be.
And I actually think that's something we could do a kind of workshop on press releases for all the project teams, and then say like, hey, on some basis, let's give some press release updates for some of these projects. So
it's clearly on us now.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to
That's
impose ourselves.
It is.
These
Or
outlets.
is it anything
We don't
that
have
can
a
be
Zach or
implemented
Ed
in their
Oh, damn.
language arts or writing or some
Yeah,
class?
I mean, that's
like
where we
everyone
were
could
headed.
submit the information and then.
That's where we were headed, and when it sold, it was like, well, shoot. Like, we kind of backed off in that because I want authentic audience, and if kids are excited and submit it and it doesn't go anywhere, like without knowing the change, we backed off, so now we need to find a way back in. I like the press release idea a lot. I totally lost it. Forget that. When it comes back, maybe it was good.
It's a huge thing, the whole marketing of us, the way we do and don't do it. And we've always been probably had less appetite for it, but it's a huge component of keeping people interested in what we do and, you know, keeping ourselves current and relevant.
The other thing, I mean, especially, you know, in rural communities, there's been a lot of push and even funding initiatives around just the art of community partnership. And so like a project like that speaks to other organizations that might be doing similar work. Like they would mention something like that in their newsletters or whatever, like SOS, like we deal with crisis people, and the fact that Mapleton School helped build a tiny home that's gonna, like that, safe shelter, you know, food share. Maybe the Sayusla watershed, like would love to, like maybe would put something in their newsletter that's going out to their own networks and saying, hey, also this is what's going on over here.
Those are all great. The January 5th, I think that's a Friday. All the community coordinators from Sayusla Vision and I are going to meet together, and I think that's what I just wrote down here is a communication plan for like we're all interconnected. Everybody you just named, we all work together on all these calls. So is there a collective kind of press release that, like, if we all submitted information into somewhere, is there somebody who could turn that into a couple press releases on some rotation or something I want to bring up in that meeting?
And don't forget the Deadwood did us.
If we, yes.
I mean, you know, there should be a school news, we've got the calendar, but really there should be a school news section. And, you know, we get a lot of support from our community, and actually the DITA goes to a lot of people outside of the area.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that annual meeting's the same day, January 5th.
It's the 5th,
Is that true?
People
So,
5 to 9 or something.
Yeah, and some of the same people in that earlier meeting are in that meeting, so we'll,
Their family still lives here.
got it.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I saw a lot of you at different sporting events this week, but basketball games have been exciting lately. We had 2-point wins on
Yesterday.
was that yesterday? Yeah, last night. And then middle school is when I don't ask me records or anything right now, but like there's a lot of basketball happening and they're all like fun, good games. And how'd you guys do today? I was
We won by 2.
I think the boys are going to win by 2 tonight.
That's likely.
So, anyway, yeah, sport and just our numbers for basketball and the connections of. I was in a meeting the other day that the opening question was about a student who found belonging through extracurricular enrichment opportunities, something like that, and there were a lot of people in this meeting, and it went every single person shared, and the stories were often either about like, you know, the person there or their own kids or students in their schools and or that they grew up with, and so it was like this big thing. And the bottom line was like everybody who participates in extracurricular, the research says, you know, performs and belongs way more than people who or students who don't, and we're watching that play out right now. I just had a coach yesterday come up to me with an eligibility report that student and those grades had not looked that good until participation, and it was like, this is why we do this. So we like to win too, but that's why we do this. So, and then I'm probably missing a whole lot of stuff, but I'll focus more on middle school, high school next month.
Next month. Okay, let's see where we are here. Any questions for Sue about middle school, high school, or elementary report? Thanks, Sue. Finance tech maintenance report documentation. Give it to us.
Not too much going on that I can think of off the top of my head. For the bills, we had payment to the auditors for 2 years ago, since it just wrapped up. Payment to Wilson Architecture working on the TAP grant. There was an email I got the other day about House Bill 3031 or 3011 that had passed, kind of requiring schools to do an evaluation of the HVAC system. Supposed to bring an expert in and have them check out your HVAC systems and sign off on them and put carbon dioxide sensors in all the rooms and stuff, but it said that it's not really required until there's state or federal funding that could cover it, and I hadn't heard of it prior to that. They didn't mention it in my business manager meetings.
It hasn't been on any of my list.
Yeah, but and so the email was about they're working with a union group, STEAM, sheet metal, SMART, sheet metal and railroad and transportation or something, I don't know. But apply for SMART will help people apply for this federal grant that is out there, and they sent this out to all the business managers, said, you know, they'll have a webinar in January, and they mentioned this federal grant, and I went and looked at it, and I replied to all the business managers and said, getting money from that grant's a pipe dream. Mm-hmm. So that's not what it's for. Mm-hmm. So so we'll see if there's ever any state or federal money to handle that bill. Otherwise, it's on the back burner.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for maintenance, we talked about last month, the pool bill, I didn't even have the energy in me to change the name of the discussion items. And we talked about last month possibly fencing it, and I mentioned to Sue today, I was like, or yesterday, sometime recently, I said, and even instead of fencing, if we just boarded it up, board up the lower windows and doors, and paint it white so that it doesn't look like total trash. But that way you help keep people out and stuff, but that'd be probably cheaper than fencing and stuff.
And actually maybe more effective, because you can climb a fence.
Yeah. It might even beg you to climb it.
Yeah.
So,
So, an option
That's a good thought,
option there to keep people out of there once we get whatever we want to get out of there. So,
yeah, I told him, my initial thought of plywood, I was like, oh, it's so tacky. But then when he said paint it white, I was like, oh, I might be sold on this. But I wanted to kind of bounce it in here. And reading your faces, it sounded like, oh, that might, especially cost-wise, I think it's going to bring it way down. So.
And it's something that could happen immediately.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good practical idea.
Okay. We'll explore that. So, good job, Jaren. Trying to think any other maintenance. You were talking about HVAC. We've had some HVAC outages. And
yes, the middle school I hear is cold.
It's yes. It is. Yes, it is.
So, and Randy said that there's 3 HVAC units over there that cover the middle school, and that they're all dead. And they flipped them over on the emergency heat, but I guess that's not doing much.
Well, there were some other issues too that compounded it, like there were some corroded batteries in one of the thermostats and stuff, so that made that thermostat, but basically I think they're on their they're limping along or not working at all. And so it isn't consistently warm.
And
can I ask a dumb question perhaps? I just walked into the counseling office today just for a second. It was hot in there.
Oh, yeah.
But I looked real quick to see if there was a heater. I was picking up a kid and turning around, but I didn't see anything. But is it any better today or this week? Or
I don't know. They're on different, so we aren't in those rooms at all, so I don't know.
So it might actually be 2 parts.
But there's different units serve different rooms, and so I wouldn't know about those at all because we're never in there.
But today was cold.
Well, if it's colder outside, we notice it's colder inside. So today was one of the rooms now is on that auxiliary, and so it heats, but there's no real control over whatever. So it heats, but it's kind of always on. And then a couple of the other rooms, one of the other rooms doesn't work. It's kind of the kind of thing where they're not functioning correctly, and so sometimes you are warm enough and sometimes you're not. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So I can't really give you a consistent, except for that they're all not working correctly the right way.
What's the correction and when time frame?
well, Randy talked about, I was talking to Randy about it. He was the one that told me about it, and so we were talking about it for a minute. Because I don't know if it's the preschool, one of the heat pumps there is also dead. That's a cheaper fix, just replacing the heat pump. The HVAC units over there, he figured we're probably looking at 150,000, and that was a while ago probably, so it could be a bit more. He said those, as we've gone through and done the construction on the buildings, they've all been replaced, and those are the last ones that haven't been, although with how often FM sheet metal's out here, you wouldn't think it on this building. But so the fix is to start getting a couple of bids, and we have money budgeted in the capital improvements fund that should be able to cover it.
This was how the fences are expensive conversation came up of like, you know,
Right.
how do you save money to do this other thing? And it was like, why wouldn't, so.
We're gonna prioritize the preschool and whatever wing of the building, because we have to like honor our tenants. We can't just like
Exactly.
put them in the gold.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we have to,
Always during.
and we
the
talked
time
through,
of meetings.
we'll learn more on this as we like go through
Yeah.
the process and stuff, but like,
I mean, if we can do it
Putting-
all at once, awesome, but if we have to like roll it out, I definitely wanna just make sure we're prioritizing where we have people.
exactly. And, you know, I was thinking like, well, if we're gonna come in and do some construction in that building behind, do you do it wrong and then come in and have to redo it?
Well, that's what I was thinking, if we're
Yeah.
gonna do construction,
Yeah.
are we just costing more money?
Right. Yeah, I
Well,
don't
and
think
with-
in
yeah,
what
and
we're
with the
proposing,
asbestos, and, yeah, we need,
Yep.
yeah, so,
these two things are connected, so we'll,
yeah.
When I was out, I did not connect with Kurt yet. I have email into him now to say, when can you meet? And I'm hoping to meet with him next week. But I'll just email that update out to you guys to say, here's where we're at on that.
How long's this been going on?
They went, they went out and ended up on auxiliary setting for, maybe that was like, I don't know, a while ago, a month and a half or something. And that worked for a while, and then they've had further problems since then, so.
Alright.
It's totally not like, it's just one of those, it's totally livable if we know that there's some, you know, like, there's some solution eventually, it's like doable, but, I mean, but I've gone and worked at home because it's warm at home.
Yeah.
Did anybody find those oil heaters? Were you part of that conversation? Do you know anything about oil heaters?
No, but that's probably not one for here right now.
Okay,
Yeah, but,
I'll follow up.
yeah,
Somebody was looking for them, and supposedly this building ran on them for a while. I don't have much information. It was just like, I didn't know anything. They went and talked to other people,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I don't know if they exist.
Alright,
yeah.
anything else for, the finance tech maintenance report?
Darren, what's the Zion's Bank?
Oh, that's the bond.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, can we move to the consent agenda? We don't have our minutes in our packets here, but,
Oh,
or I don't,
Right.
do I?
no, I didn't print those out, I sent those to,
We got them in our
So-
packet.
I could pop it up on the screen if you'd like.
Or those are the ones I sent
I'm
to
okay with
you.
that.
Okay, everybody seems,
You guys good on?
we're good, never mind. All right, so I will entertain a motion to, approve our consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Action items, we can talk about the integrated grant, can't we?
We finally got it.
Fantastic.
So, and a couple things that I'll have Jaren be specific in the minutes on for this. But, and we sent that out to you guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
so, we've talked a lot about the integrated plan and all those things. This is what formalizes it and gets us our money. Two things, and I don't think you're gonna have to look up there because you have it. It's probably more for me. Actually, since you have it, just let me know.
Okay, I don't think we have.
Is it helpful?
It's a
Okay,
separate,
yeah.
It was in
it's
our
a
email.
separate
Okay.
email.
Yeah.
Let me do that then.
Which I printed from my desk.
Yeah.
When I left home.
Yeah, me too.
Is that, am I on that? I am, okay. I have this open and then I went to, I screwed something up. Hold on. Is this in the? It's in the picture. I might need you to. Sorry, I had this and then I realized I didn't, I'm offline.
Yeah.
Of course I'm offline.
Yeah.
Why am I offline? All right, forget that. Do you have it? Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Anyway, what I want to tell you while he's bringing it up, we got 3 different grant agreements: high school success money, EIIS, which is early indicator something or other, and that's a small amount of money that's used for building data systems to support students. And then the last one is SIA. specific money. The SIA one has some legislative requirements to go through board approval and public opportunity for public comments multiple times through the process, and so that's what this is. We already submitted the other 2 grant agreements. A lot of this is just typical language. If you can scroll all the way to, I think it's attachment A. Oh yeah, the amount, just so you know, we're talking of this part, this is 235,000 of our whole amount of this. There's those six categories for, well, yeah, they each have buckets of money somewhere attached to them, and this is just the SIA part of that.
Okay, so they're each split up in a separate agreement?
Yeah, so the process is integrated, the budgets are not so much, but an attempt. And the reporting is integrated, which makes it easier on our end, but kind of the business and budget behind the scenes part is all still operating separately because they have some different legislative requirements. Okay, so Exhibit A has the background. Keep scrolling. This is the one part we've been asked to make sure all boards understand, and keep going. There'll be some tables. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, so this first one, I've shared with you guys the progress markers and that they've been optional the last couple years. Now the reporting process is designed around these progress markers, and so we'll talk about them a lot more. When I do updates, I'll include a set of the progress markers. There's, I believe, I should know this, I think it's 16, keep scrolling, 15 altogether, and when we report, we're sharing how continuous improvement process connected to this money and beyond. So when we report, we'll make sure the money from this SIA is really attended to the impacts it's having, but also here's the growth we're seeing in our district as a product of ongoing continuous improvement. Then the second part is the we call them LPGTs, but longitudinal performance growth targets. And this is those 5 kind of long-term metrics that all districts are kind of measured by. And so those first 2 were actually didn't go up. Yeah, right there. So 4 and 5 year cohort. We met with ODE and kind of co-constructed these, and you'll notice they start lower and go higher. The years of like 100% in 5 years, like dream goals are gone. This is like, hey, if we trend upwards, this is where we think we need to be. Of course, we want to be higher than that. So
when you say you did this in conjunction with ODE, were you informing ODA?
Yeah, we submitted a draft, and when they got it, then we had a meeting and went through it and kind of talked through it. I'll share one of the things that came out of that meeting on the next page. But just to share that 52% for this year, in that meeting, it was like, well, what's your graduation rate going to be? And knowing who our students were that I knew at that time, this was last spring, I said, well, I think we're going to be here, but I don't know who's on our. So I don't know who you all think goes to our school, and so that was some of the conversation about like coming out of COVID. Like kids are all over the place, and even if I graduate 100% of the kids that I've known over these 2 years, we could be at 60% because of files that haven't made it to somewhere else kind of thing. And so we have a little bit better idea of it, but that's why we're starting. We kind of took that 52% off of COVID years and then built up from there. And some of that is file cleanup, and it's really hard to graduate a kid you have never heard of. So some of that's still playing out. So I just want to acknowledge why those numbers are lower. And then if you scroll to the next page, this was so the 9th grade on track, and for last year's 9th graders, we are at 100% already. Some of the reasoning for they look at 3-year trends as well, and so that you don't artificially inflate to your accountability way up here and then go, oh, well, that was a good year, those kind of things. So we're already far above that. Oh, what I started to say, so baseline target is like when we include all students. The stretch targets are really looking at populations who have struggled, and for us, I believe in every category, it's those, when you see the gap closing targets, sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. We're so small that when you start to say, well, we have a gap with this group of students, it gets to such small data that we can't report it, and then therefore we don't have a accountability measure on it. So that's what some of the blanks are, is just we're small.
What are the categories?
In terms of, for the groups.
Yeah.
Well, for us, in our plan, it's almost always homeless students, and then students with disabilities on some of these measures, not all of them. So, but those are our 2 groups. It could be any group of students that you find gaps in the data, and we've talked about the kind of focal student groups of the state level, where you tend to see the biggest discrepancies in data. Students of color, students learning English, students navigating poverty, foster care, homelessness. I used to be really good at saying that list, but I need it written now. I don't do that every day. And then the stretch target is, okay, hey, minimum of 70, but let's shoot for 85 this year kind of thing, and you see those growing across there. You'll notice the 3rd grade ELA proficiency is empty. This is one of those funny things where like state testing, yay, you have to do it, there's all these rules, and then I get to this meeting, I actually had numbers submitted in our draft, and they're like, you don't have enough 3rd graders to use this, to have a goal, and I was like, interesting. So I'll leave you all to decide what that means. So it kind of fit, this was kind of at the same timing that our resolution was kind of landing and doing those things, and I was like, well, it seems really important right now. And so, and then the attendance, we are fixated on that, and that one is homeless students on the bottom for sure, in the gap closing. So. And then this is the other one I wanted to share. This is optional, and because of both our resolution with state testing and not having a metric about academic performance, I talked with ODE about, hey, we as a group talked about the importance of local performance measures, and I'd like us to be accountable to that inside of this, because that's that's the reasoning we're giving about the state opt-in. And so we worked together with ODE to set this and focus on written performance tasks. And you'll notice it's just participation and only a 2-year metric instead of a 5-year metric to start with. And I thought ODE in this conversation was really cool, where they were like, well, you need baseline data, but if you don't have full participation, because we weren't this was one of the areas we were in corrective action and putting this in, they're like, let's build the system over the first 2 years, get the baseline data, and then use that to set a local performance or a local metric to say, okay, based on these numbers, here's what we're aiming for with our local metric. And so for the first 2 years, we are putting those systems in place, making sure participation is across the board in all, in all classes, and that's what we're holding ourselves accountable to in this money. So
does that mean we are not out of compliance with Division 22 standard? I mean, it sounds like they're working with us.
I submitted. I actually forgot to include this, so if they come back and say, well, it's still not according to the rule, I'll say, well, we also did this, and see if I don't know what they're gonna say, but when I submitted it and said, hey, we're calling every parent, I mean, where it feels out of compliance is that language that we have to use their process because we can't make a choice for parents. But if we call every parent and say, what do you have this option and you don't opt in, I don't think we've made it in there, so that's how I wrote it and submitted it, and we'll see what we hear back.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
but this was intended to do the right work, and show like, we're not avoiding accountability, we're localizing accountability. The rest of it, I think, is legalese, and if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so 2 things we need to do with this, and will you note them in the minutes? We need to pause here and have public comment.
Right.
Public, do you have anything to add? We don't hear anything, and then we'll make sure that we put it like a little asterisk or something that says open for public comment there. And we're in action items right now, and then I need y'all to either approve or not approve this grant agreement.
I move that we approve this, ODE grant 34418.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, unanimous.
You were ready.
Thanks very much.
He's an overachiever over here.
This has been on the agenda for months, and so this feels
So
good.
nice.
Yeah.
Plus it's money.
And
Plus it's money.
I say this and it's significant money, and I say this every time. I just want to make sure people know this one, the holdup was not ODE, and they take the brunt of this when this stuff goes behind. If you ever hear people blaming them for stuff like this was the DOJ. They're backed up because there's a lot of money moving through. It's not even to blame them. It's just as we add more money into the system, more systems are there, and it gets backlogged, and they didn't have staff. Exactly. So anyway, but it was not ODE, and they are really excited that this is done.
All right. Well, thanks for the participation. Let's go to our second reading of the policies that we dealt with last month. Anything to be said, Sue, that you want to?
I don't have anything to add. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I don't have anything to.
Does anybody have questions for Sue?
No.
Okay, then on this, I would entertain a motion on 7.2.
I move to approve 7.2, the second reading of the policies. I don't have to look at all of them, right?
No.
Okay.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No.
Now you all are over there.
Yeah,
You did.
always-
Started at front. I know you didn't do it on the first one.
Okay,
So I was ready.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you so much. Okay, discussion items, the pool location. We talked about
that. The one other thing I wanted to share, and I was reminded when my email was up there, I just got an email from somebody at the Florence, Chantel Meyer, who were members of the Sayasla Vision committee, and a local parent who I know the name, and I'm blanking right now, but reached out to them about local bike pump tracks and stuff, putting that in Florence, and they threw the idea around and said, wait, Mapleton, that came up in connection with the pool building out there, and at the City of Florence group said that's not anywhere on our short to medium term trajectory. What if we send you over to Mapleton? And so I just got kind of introduced, and there's a lot of information in this email about the logistics of something like this and process. So we're gonna schedule a meeting with a couple different people to kind of sit down and say what are you thinking, and what's possible where we have this building. It's going to cost a lot of money to do anything with that building, but we also have that land, the what do y'all call it?
It used to be the playground.
Okay, the playground, the non-playground. Next to it, does something fit there for starters that then gets people excited about get that building out of the way so that fundraising becomes easier for the building or something. So there's a little bit of fun momentum still around the bikes that kind of re-emerged literally. Well, the introduction was made today, so this week. So I just wanted to share that, and obviously we're still waiting for updates from Kurt on costs for all sorts of things, but there is traction, that was on purpose, happening as well, so.
All right, well, I mean, it's nice that there's vision,
Mhm.
I mean, and creativity around this, because really, we've been sort of stuck.
Yeah. And it's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say, like, we haven't done enough around this idea to say it's gonna be a bike track, so I don't wanna give that impression.
But I think those things have been in people's minds, something like that. I need an activity area.
Yeah, and I will
was
say
already
that
envisioning like the building could become like a covered park picnic table
Yes.
area with bathrooms where it's like, if you're having a get-togethers, I mean, you could go there, but like we need it to be covered and lights in the bathroom.
Mhm. And it would be really, I mean, it would be great if we could flesh something out, but then have a community
Yeah.
engagement where we talk to people, how's this feel? You know, it would be nice if we had something to offer, and even if it was not embraced by our community, it would be something to have a conversation about.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say the bike thing in all sorts of populations, that not just like kids or just adults or just people in this area kind of thing. It stirs excitement and creativity, which is fun. So like it feels like the right conversation to keep moving without but keep saying we're not married to that idea.
Right.
We're married to what else can it be? And this is an exciting one we've heard. This is the most exciting one that has emerged so far.
Mhm.
So
It is, and also I did hear fairly recently, a podcast about kids in wheelchairs in these parks that can be for, you know,
Cool.
not just people on two-wheelers, but, you know, there's potential to like bring in everybody.
yeah, awesome.
Cool, all right. What is that? Oh, OSBA training. Had they gotten back to you?
No.
Did you read those? I sent you some
did.
emails about, they're in disarray right now.
Yeah.
You know Emily is the
Yes.
prez right now. Emily Centrelli, y'all remember her. Or some of us remember her.
A grad, I think,
Mapleton grad, yeah, she took over the reins of the OSBA under suspicious, I shouldn't say suspicious, but murky. I'm not sure what happened, but it wasn't very clear. It wasn't clear to me, and I was just at the conference, and it happened like the next night, so something untoward, I guess.
So anyway, I have a request in, I mean, the contact us, how you get a hold of them, it's supposed to be send an email on this contact us thing, and I haven't heard back. I sent another one. And I did reach out to Krista and say, who should I contact over there? She sent me the names, but no contact information. So I need to follow. That was quite a while ago, and I was like, well, let me try the contact us and see if it works, and then I'll follow back up and be like, great, do you have their phone numbers? So
You know what, I'm gonna text Emily, because we exchanged information when I was there, and I'll just say, hey, you know, I
I'm
mean,
looking for training.
can you grease the wheels in the
I
window?
will.
Yeah,
Great.
maybe that's an easy thing to do, even though there's all this other stuff.
Yeah, it seems like it should be, yeah.
And I'm still gonna try to aim for January, but if they take too long there, we might have to look at other times. So I'll let you know when I hear from them.
Okay, Sayusla Charter School, what's the status? Nisi,
I
were you
didn't-
able?
No, I didn't do anything.
Okay.
I called Andy, had a conversation. So the application that was submitted talks about the target audience being current homeschool kids, and so there's not a lot of information to pull from about impacts on Sayusla's population or our population, because the target kind of group and audience and who they expect to come to the school are current homeschool kids.
Oh.
So
That's
I
a
don't-
whole different.
yeah, so that's what was submitted in the application there. So it's hard to get into numbers and impact and those kind of things. I did ask him about interdistrict transfers, like would that become an issue? We have worries about that. Right now we sit, he actually knew the numbers offhand, it was like 15 to 12 or something. So we're pretty close to 1-to-1, and don't have worries about where we're off. we just kind of said, without knowing the impact, we don't expect any change in our agreement. If it got to a point, once we know what it's at, we would sit down and say, hey, let's kind of work this through.
I mean, that's kind of the official statement, right? Because like just historically, that's not necessarily what happens in practice. Like Triangle Lake is a great example. Like they're not targeting our district, but yet it impacted our district pretty greatly. So I'm just putting that out there. Just like I love that the application says this, but in reality, it's probably not exactly how it's going to play out. Just I feel like that should be named.
Yep, absolutely. And then in terms of process, the board approval was for a charter agreement to move into process. So that charter agreement still needs to happen, but in order for a school to open, they're targeting September of 25. I've seen two different things. Just I don't know in the formal application. Talking to Andy, I'm positive he said 24 to me on the phone. But what I've seen online says 25, and so I don't know in the application what it said. That can't happen until there's a charter agreement in place, like the legalese piece of it, and I believe the January board meeting is going to be the first, but did he say that? It felt like that. I might be making that up, but somewhere kind of January or beyond, that first process will start with approving that agreement. And so we'll just keep listening out for where that is. And the longer that takes, the less likely fall of 24 becomes. So. And that's just a process thing.
Alright. Keep us updated. And Lisa, you're still planning on having a conversation?
Well, I don't know, yeah, maybe, but I don't, I'm not sure. Mostly, I think maybe just tracking it from, like, the board, like, what discussions and stuff like that might be far enough at the moment.
Because of this information, do you feel like less?
Yeah, well, I just feel like it's a process that is gonna be documented in those board. And so kind of just keeping that, like, tuning into those.
Okay. Does that sound good to everybody? All right, cool. Thanks. Where are we? Down here. Inclusivity. There's been some discussions, Facebook, elsewhere, and it would be nice if you could bring us up to speed on what's going on in the community around inclusivity.
Yeah, so the topic came out of a Facebook post that is about a comment made in, that's probably not the right way to say that, but anyway, something that was said in 3rd and 4th grade PE related to gender. And in fitness, there's national standards for fitness for boys and for girls. And the comment was, if you identify as a boy, grab this set of standards, or this paper that has these standards on it. And if you identify as a girl, grab these. And that's made it back. I've met with parents about that comment about our stance on gender inclusivity and all inclusivity as well. So I just want to like open that up, but we're talking about gender in this specific case. And continue to be open to meeting with parents and families about this topic, and both all of our admin staff and this teacher specifically is very open to those conversations. And then and I just wanted to share the reasoning for, like, as a district, from my stance of leadership and then classroom as well, in terms of right, so gender, there are a lot of students who identify as non-binary and or trans, or you'll hear a lot of different words or language around that, but I'll use non-binary and transgender. And especially at our middle school, high school level, and to some degree at our 5th and 6th grade. What we're finding is when students are using different names and or pronouns, I would say our staff has been very supportive of using that. Peers who grow up with those students are struggling to use the right pronouns, and it's not in a refusal type way, but in a like hasn't been normalized type of way, and really trying to open that practice and normalize so that pronouns are a thing. The reason for that, for me, bottom line, is keeping kids alive. I'll just say it that way. The Oregon data, trying to remember, 54% of students, this is from the health, what's the word? Anyway, there's a large scale state teen-wide health survey, 6th, 10th, and 12th graders, 6th, 8th, and 10th. Shoot, I'll send it to you guys. That's given every year, and in that data, and it's a robust set of data, not just about suicide. There's substance use, belonging. It's huge, but the data shows that 54% of students who identify as gender expansive is the word that's kind of culminates, but trans and non-binary are included in that, have seriously considered suicide in the last year. And that is in the range. We're a little higher in Oregon than the rest of the nation, but it's above 40% in all of those measures. And my bottom line, and I think I've shared this with all of you, but I lost a student to suicide my last year in the classroom, and I will never not take that serious. It is the worst thing that I've ever been through as a professional, as a person probably, but definitely as a professional. And that was a student who was under the umbrella of queer in various ways. And our bottom line for all students is creating a welcoming and inclusive, safe environment for every student. And this is one of the many ways that we do this. That comment was intentional. I met with the teacher and was intentionally not done at 1st and 2nd grade because of data and research, but 3rd through high school, that was the way that it was introduced. And we did have students in our older grades who chose the paper that matches the way they identify versus the way that they're given sex, and opened up some safety for them to do so. And then the teacher is super open to conversations with families and accommodations for families that so like similar to curriculum, families can choose to opt out of various curriculum. Similarly, the teacher was like, hey, we can create things when I know I'm going to do this, when it's intentional, we can make arrangements to opt out and, come in a couple minutes later and grab the paper and do these things, and give the heads up that, hey, this is how I'm going to introduce this in class. So, I think.
Is all this making sense, everybody here? Okay. Cool.
And we've been in conversations with the families.
But I feel like, I don't know how to like separate myself as like parent versus board member.
Well, you're a board member.
Yeah.
Here, first.
So, I mean, I think that it's like our duty to make sure that parents feel like the school is being fully transparent, and at the beginning of the school year or registration or somewhere, a letter or something is said at the 3rd and 4th grade level that says, this is what's gonna be said and this is what's gonna be taught. That way, parents that don't actively seek out what their kids are hearing or learning, or that way they can very forwardly know that this is gonna be happening before it happens. That way they can, so a form or something that they can opt into letting their kid hear this.
Yeah,
Something, I mean.
I don't know if opt in, I mean, with curriculum, you opt out of those, right, like, a lot of times it's health and sex education, right? Like, it's an opt out, and so.
But what's the difference between opting in state
Either way,
testing versus, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
where's the, we have to opt in to state test, so why can't we opt in to?
Yeah, I guess for like, so as a statement when it's, cause, and I just want, I guess the other thing I wanna say about inclusivity, like, even specific to I'm gonna keep it to gender, but I think this plays out in lots of ways, but, there are inclusive, how do I say this? Let me think this through first. There is inclusive language used all the time. Pronouns are one use of those, right? Identify as, I gave that comment. I use the word sibling instead of brother and sister all the time. I recognize, I actually had a kid tell me like, hey, I use they, them, but you always call me their sister. And I was like, well, what do I call you? And they're like, sibling? And I was like, done. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where like, once I heard it, I was like, oh, I do that to everybody. How do I know in those moments if you're that? And I'm like, sibling is a good word. It means all, right? So that's one small example, but there's a lot of ways that we have modified language to be more inclusive. And I guess for me, the opt-in versus opt-out is like, what are we opting into? Inclusive language? Are we opting into, and this particular, you know, like,
I would think she means at least they're informed. So that they're
That
not
this is our
caught off
stance,
guard, that
this
it's
is
like, oh,
our-
at some point, my 3rd or 4th grader, who's really not in any kind of sex ed type of issue, because you referred to that there, like, they're going to hear this at some point.
Yeah.
Is that something I need to worry about now and want to, and act upon early, have a discussion with my kid, whatever the case may be? If they don't know, and then partway through the year, they're hearing that unexpectedly, and didn't think that was something they're gonna worry about in elementary school.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been concerned.
Well, and I mean, what part of physical education does sex ed have to do with that 3rd and 4th grade level? Because 3rd and 4th graders don't learn health. I mean, it's not health.
Well, I guess that's why the opt-in versus opt-out is really hard for me. So, this wasn't a sex ed lesson. I want to be really clear about that.
But it very quickly can turn into that.
But the way this played out was, take this paper. Kids took the paper and they went and did physical fitness testing and reflection on their scores in correlation with the set of standards. If you're a boy, you grabbed the paper. If you're a girl, you grabbed the paper. And if you identify as either one of those differently, you grabbed the paper of choice. And then the lesson was a fitness lesson, right? There was no conversation, follow-up of what I mean by identify as is such and such and such, right? No teaching of that. I mean,
So what comes later when the person, you know, an assumption of other students, and they see their fellow peer in that class go grab a different paper, and like they see those things, they see those actions, conversations afterwards very well could happen.
They could.
I'm just wondering, like, what I took out of the whole thing was, are we paying attention to and because, I mean, I'll just say I don't agree with that young of an age. But beyond that, whether or not I have control or say so in any of it, parent or otherwise, is there good education happening behind that? Like why, like my fear in this whole thing, and I work in a high school, is I know we educate and talk about things in one way, but are we educating and talking about things in why? Why do you identify as that? Do you understand what that means? Do you tell me why this is not what you think? Like, there's a whole educational thing behind it, and I don't think it's being addressed much. So my fear in that at my school is, if we're suggesting and being open to and giving that as an option, do these kids know why?
I'm hearing two different things in that. Like, can I clarify or ask
Sure.
a clarifying question? So on one level, I heard like, what happens if, if a student that born male grabs the female set, what happens in that moment when other kids notice? Nothing. That kid has the right to grab that paper, and the lesson continues as a fitness lesson. If somebody says something like, that's not your paper, that's going to be the spot where I think the repeat of that line would be, I said students who identify as, and that is the student's choice in paper, just like you had the choice to grab yours. Now let's go with the fitness lesson, right? Like that's the way that would play out, where that's the point, is normalizing this, not shining a light on it in that moment.
But in a perfect world, it ends in the gym, right? I don't know that it necessarily is. I don't know that. Like, I don't think any of us can say that it doesn't then go back to the classroom, and Joe, who thought his friend Jim was going to grab a boy paper and didn't, isn't going to go home and talk about that. Well, that was weird. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean it ends right there with re-clarifying what the teacher had asked for. It doesn't mean that.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's things that are kind of like unexpected all day long in schools that my kid comes home and says like, hey, what did this mean? Right? Like, and didn't ask it in a class.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. It could very well, right, like go on. So my fear is then, what are we doing after that?
So that's my clarifying question. So separate from that, is there gender specific instruction in the health and other standards? Because there are state standards connected to normalizing gender, and those start.
I think because you're implementing it, and that, unfortunately, all those things have to be considered and thought about. And my concern is, if we then are, I don't care if it's at 3rd grade or 12th grade, whatever age it seems to be going down and down to, is the education not, why does this person in my classroom that I see as a girl identifying as a boy, some education, I feel like, which I don't think happens, and maybe this is broader than right here, although we're in it, we should feel affected by it. Is there any education as to why my friend that I thought was a girl to her, who's now identifying as a boy, as into why? Like, what, I mean, understand them. So maybe there's a root problem, maybe there's something happening that's, even if they're still identifying as a boy, there might be something happening, like, and them understanding what that means. What does that really mean to identify as a boy?
About the kid who picked the paper, or to the kid who noticed?
No, to the person who's like, I think that would be my fear, is, I don't know. I don't think you're understanding that. So
you look like you're gonna say something.
No, I'm not either. Like, supporting the kid who took the paper, like education, supporting that kid, or
I guess supporting them, but sure, I guess it's supporting the kid, but it's not, I don't know, maybe someone else can explain it differently.
I think it's more like, instead of just saying, okay, we're just gonna say, Jim is now wants to be a girl. So is there anybody in the school that's saying, okay, but why do you feel like this? Like, when did you start? Like, is there anybody like questioning it, or is it just all of a sudden everybody's affirming it?
So, I mean, I'll just say from my perspective, childhood is a time where people experiment and find who they are. So if that moment, that kid says, I'm a girl, I'm gonna honor that and acknowledge it. I'm not gonna question it. I wouldn't, I don't. I mean, this happens in my world.
But ever?
No, never. It's not up to me. I mean, that is not up to me, because that person says, this is who I feel I am. It's not up to me to go, what are you talking about? That has to be their road.
I don't think it's what are you talking about.
I don't think, I think it has to be in that moment.
You can do it in a very compassionate way of, not that you're anti-affirming what they're saying, but let's talk about why. There's plenty of other topics of why you would then, okay, but how come you feel that way? Or why do you feel, we ask it in when they make comments or say things about other people's cultures or religions or anything else, any other topics, like, well, how come? Like, and maybe they don't understand some simple little thing, but if we're never questioning and making them think and really think through their process.
Well, especially at 3rd and 4th grade, I just think that's...
Actually, the data shows that's actually...
I've heard all the data stuff, I get that, but...
A couple different things real quick. So, just in terms of the child development research, like, at 6 years old, kids have a strong sense of gender. And for trans and non-binary folks, the marker, well, I'll say what I read was trans-specific. Transgender adults, the markers show that by 6, they had a strong sense of gender. So this isn't kids are choosing, do I want to try to be trans for a while? This is an affirming space.
I think it could get there.
I have a hard time with it because of puberty and so many different hormonal, I understand that there's data out there that says that, but there's a lot of other things, and there's a lot of other things they're gonna go through, and a lot of other problems and mess ups and confusions and everything else. So I find that is a really hard time in life.
Yeah.
To be saying that they know what they want. They also, tomorrow they don't like pizza. But every day they did,
and that's where the questioning, if I say, well, why are you thinking that today? It starts to say, well, I have to think something else tomorrow. The reality is, if you just have an affirming space, kids navigate through that. And when they ask for support, 100% we're there. I guess the thing I want to say is, when a girl picks the girl one, would I ever ask them why they picked that one? And if a boy picks the boy one, would I ever question their thought process? And my answer is no. I never would ask that question, so I'm not actually going to ask that question to any kid. And we have kids on our campus who are trans and or non-binary, and they are supported. We have a Gay Straight Alliance club that they can choose to go to. We do not force anybody to go. There are straight members of that who show up in support of. We don't question why they're there or not there. There are kids that I would guess are in the LGBTQ kind of umbrella, but that's an assumption on my part. If they don't come to that club, I would never come and say, how come you chose not to come to this club? We made it for you. That's not right. Those are assumptions on my part that aren't that space. That means it's not the space that student wants to be in. Just because we say, if you identify as, doesn't mean every trans student is going to feel comfortable going and taking the paper that's different, right? We're just opening that space so that every kid feels seen and heard, and dot, period, move on to the next thing. So
for me, it's that we use gendered speech all the time in every, like, all the time. And in fact, to change that is really hard because it's just a habit we use, but it doesn't fit everybody. And so trying to use something that is more, that tries to fit in more, and so that's always evolving and changing too, the words are, you know, but makes sense to me because if we don't use that, if I use very strict boy, girl terms, I'm not speaking to anybody who has a different, you know, who identifies differently, and so it's like, anyway, it's just it's a baseline for me. It's trying to provide a space that's inclusive, and not doing it is very, you know, it is very exclusive to kids who, anyway, I thought about this a lot, and I was like, I wish I would have written something down, but basically, for me, it's about trying to recognize that there are a lot of people who have a really wide range of identities for themselves and wanting to provide space and honor that. Not to, yeah, and to do the best we can to do that. So that's why I feel, I'm making an effort to change my language, and why I think it's really appropriate for us as a district to do that.
So then how do we as a school make parents feel comfortable that don't feel comfortable with like that language? Because there is parent, you know, because we can't just, how do you have the best of both worlds? How do you appease this group and how do you appease this group? But like, we can't just appease one and not the other, you know? So if there's parents here that don't feel comfortable with that, we have to, like, and just because they may not be actively saying, like, coming to Sue or coming to the teacher, or doesn't mean that they are comfortable with it, you know? So I think that we need to figure out some way to make parents feel comfortable and be very, very, very open, and like, this is exactly what is going to be said, and it cannot be, there has to be some sort of policy that it cannot be like strayed away from. If that's what you say you're going to say, it can't be go any further kind of thing, because I just think it's not right for parents that aren't comfortable with that to just have to say, I guess my comfortability is sacrificed for their comfortability. And
it's a moving target though. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to get it written down in stone, because it is morphing as we sit here.
But that says something.
It says a lot, and it says, I think what it's saying is we're trying to draw a big tent and make as many people, especially our students, as comfortable as possible. And this is an accommodation that I think that we're agreeing upon. Okay, we're not all agreeing upon it, apparently.
No.
But you know, when we talk about opt-in for testing, we decided testing was harmful for kids. That was, as a district, we made that determination. If you want your kids to take the test, we will provide that for you. With this, we're opting into a safe space for kids. This is a positive thing. It's not something, we're opting out of a dangerous situation. And the more we read about it, and the more we know about it, and the more we hear about kids who are not tracking in the traditional ways, we have to open up our hearts and our minds to them. And this is the only way we can be safe.
I think part of opening up our hearts and minds is, you know, okay, affirm them, but also say, okay, like Yanni's saying, like, why, like, when did you start feeling this way? Why? Like, is there something that made you start feeling this way? I just think that there's...
Can I jump in on two things? So, like, one, at the root of that why is there's something wrong with you. And that, like, I can't and will never question a kid in a way that makes them feel like being different is not normative. And it's a difference in that. But I just have to say that we also have a policy. I just want to bring this up real quick. All students belong is a required policy in the state, and I come in with this. I just started thinking about it and found it on here.
Well, while you're looking at that,
Yeah,
I just wanted to say briefly that, like, I want to say two things. One, which I feel very strongly about, like, I as a parent want to be included and informed, but I as a board member, I'm responsible to the students, and I'm not going to put parents above that. Second thing though, I just wanted to open with that. Second thing is, I do, as a parent, want to be informed. So I like the part, I disagree with some of the philosophies that you two are, the why behind and all that. I do disagree. I'm more with, it doesn't matter. We're creating an inclusive and safe place and normalizing that. But what does resonate is this idea of just like having some more informative, like when we do curriculum adoption, I know technically it's like, we did curriculum adoption, it was approved, it was at a board meeting, anybody who wanted to speak up could have, they didn't show up. But to Abby's point, about those parents who might not quite be as on top of it, or as, they're trusting us to like have made these decisions for their students. And so then when something comes up that's just like, ooh, just like kind of sits wrong. There's things that have sat wrong with me. So something like, I'm not down for like a forum where someone's often interrupting out. We adopted curriculum, I think we should stick with that. But I am down for like, hey, by the way, like I remember when Ramil was in 7th grade or whatever, there was a paper that came home and said, hey, we're doing sex ed, and these are the things that are gonna be talked about. So I know it seems like no big thing for PE to just be like, we're gonna be, it could be just something like we're gonna be doing performance standards for students in 3rd and 4th grade. These are the performance standards, and we offer that for, for however the student identifies. That's just informing the parent, because then the piece that I really did like is that you've had to meet with people, and that you've had multiple conversations with parents, and that you've had to navigate a few things. Some of the stuff we don't have control over, like what goes on a Facebook page or a post, but some things we do, those that were just like, wait a minute, yeah, this is something I want to talk about, came to you. So like, I feel like we can find a balance between, informing parents about what's happening, without putting parents above the students, which is hard for me to say because I'm a parent. I'm so invested in what my kids are learning and what they're consuming and what they're being exposed to. As a board member, it's a little different hat and it's a little different priority for me. And but just trying to find that balance to make sure that I don't like the thought of parents feeling blindsided on this or any other thing that might come up. And that's real. Like the part that just rubbed me wrong was just like, oh, like, do I think that the parents should be bothered? That's neither here nor there. The fact is that they were blindsided and feel a little bit, wait a minute, I didn't know this was happening, and are there some things that some measures we could take to maybe remedy that a little bit? Because even if this exact situation happened and some parents still said, oh, I didn't know this was happening, it's like, actually, instead of just saying, oh, we adopted the curriculum, it was approved, we could say, actually, we sent home, we told you what was going to happen in this class, or something, I don't know. It's hard to draw the line of where that would be. Like, why would it just need to be on, like, gender inclusivity, and we're not sending information home on what's being taught in language arts? I mean, that I don't have, I don't know. I kind of wanted to acknowledge some of the things that they said, and, like, I don't like the parents being blindsided part, but I also don't, like, the students having a safe place to express is of the most highest importance to me.
And I wonder if it could be just something at the beginning of the year or whatever in very current communication we say we are going, we will use inclusive language just as it brought, because it's not just about the gender.
That's true.
It's about inclusive language, all,
to include, and I want to say, like, this was in PE in a gendered situation. Like, another teacher may say something like this in another classroom that is an example of if you identify, I don't know what, like, this is an easy example of a gendered, a very gendered thing that you can't simply pull the gender out of. Does that make sense? Like, the standards are different. I'll give an example. Elementary schools across everywhere, you used to like line up by boys and girls, and that was just the common practice. There are very few places that you will go to in elementary schools now where the practice is boys and girls line up by boy and girl, right? It's just like 2 lines so we can walk down the halls. That's an easy way to do that without language that now makes it less gendered. I don't know where those examples are going to be until those examples are there.
Maybe
this is
it's
one that
this,
came up.
though.
But
Maybe it's
yeah,
this.
I do want to just pull back to this real quick to say we do have a policy, and putting this forward and having some language around, hey, our teachers are going to use inclusive language and connected to this all students belong. And our mission is to provide a safe learning environment where students are encouraged and empowered to reach their educational and personal potential. All students are entitled to a high-quality educational experience, free from discrimination or harassment based on perceived race, color, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin. And I just, this discrimination or harassment, right, doesn't always have to be, what's the word, like explicit? Or say it again?
Overt.
Overt, that's the word I want. A lot of times it's hidden, and that is the way that people experience a world where they're not part of the normative culture. It feels like ongoing harassment where they don't fit. It's like, hey, I gave you the wrong form, and that they feel unseen, right? And so that definition of discrimination and harassment is their lived experience versus overt, like intentional hurtful actions. All employees are, I'll just tell me when to stop.
I mean, anywhere where it says gender identity is this is what the public needs to know.
Well, I mean, I just think it's the whole thing, because it's
Yeah.
like also this, all these other things, gender identity is one of those things, but like I think having this, maybe in terms of notifying families, sort of, hey, this is the policy that we have, and this, this is the way that it will be in practice, in just a real generalized way that teachers, staff will attempt to use inclusive language and actions, throughout the year.
If you look around the room, I mean, we are representatives of our community, and we're on different places in our own personal trajectories. I didn't start out understanding why I had to use they and them pronouns. I really didn't. And so it's not like I just took to it. And I'm not suggesting that everybody will, but the reality is that here in this school, we're just trying to keep kids safe, and that's sort of the highest regard that we can have for all of our students. And the way I believe it is that it keeps kids who are non-binary safe, and it keeps kids who are binary safe. We're all getting information about the world we live in. This is the world we live in. We want our kids to have the tools to navigate the world they live in. And the school right here is just a little microcosm. I mean, I was surprised to hear the number of binary, non-binary, and trans kids in this school here. I had no idea that we've had more than one or two. But we do.
Just to share percentages, at the middle school, high school, of students that we have affirmed their identity, which is not everybody. Right around, so between 8 and 10% our population, what I'm dividing by has changed over the last couple times, but between 8 and 10% trans students, and trans and non-binary, and over 20% of our students have identified in the umbrella of LGBTQ, and that's not a small percentage of our kids, right? And so,
but I think that data statistic could be. I mean, I I don't know how to use the right words, but I guess that could be alarming to some parents. And then,
if we think that's problematic, and here's the thing, like LGBTQ is bigger, right? There's sex and gender all included in that, and it gets complicated. And I got third and fourth graders running around calling each other gay and trying to piss each other off. That is a problem. I will interrupt that every single time, right? That this is what we're trying to. That's not a safe environment for a student who identifies gay or will identify gay. We don't get to create that. Similarly, religion. We don't get to run around and call each other names based on religion. We don't get to run around and call each other names based on race and color. We don't get to run around and call each other names based on disability or national origin. We will interrupt that every single time because it's not a safe environment, right? In this case, this is just opening to say, hey, grab this. If this paper makes sense for you, grab it. If this paper makes sense for you, grab it. Period, done. Everybody has the right paper, let's move on. If as individuals in this community, if we look at that number and say that's alarming, I look at that number and say, damn, kids, and I will tell you, we have kids enrolling on inter-district transfers from other districts who don't feel safe in their school, and they come here and they feel safe. I am damn proud of that number. I want every kid to feel safe in this school. I could care less what your gender identity or sexual orientation or any of those other things that there are, unless you want to have a discussion with me about how to support you for your needs, right? Then I'll care in that moment. Otherwise, I don't care. That's not.
And the point is, we're trying to normalize it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one aspect of a person's character. It's one little thing. You're non-binary, you still ride a bike, you still eat noodles, you still, take a bath. It's one little portion. It's a big portion of a person, but it's one aspect of a being. And I think when we magnify that aspect of the person, we're missing the point that they're just another human slogging around the planet Earth, And I can see, Abby, your discomfort, and I can hear it. I not just see it, I hear it. I hear you, and I want to honor where you're coming from. I want to honor your own personal thoughts. But as a school board member, you have the charge of this district and these kids, and you're.
but also I have to speak, I feel like I have to speak up for the other community members that aren't here tonight that also feel the same that I do. And maybe.
Sure. Right, I think that that's good, and I also think that this school will accommodate as best we can the parents who say, I'm just not down with this. I'm gonna pull my kid out while you use the word, whatever we have to do, we're gonna make an attempt. But, so it's not like we're saying you don't exist and you're just gonna have to not exist.
Well, of course not, but it just feels like.
Yeah, you're not alone. I mean, the world is changing under our feet, and a lot of people are going, nope, not me. I'm not going there. But sorry, the train left the station. the earth is
But I don't
changing.
think, so I don't even know how to.
I mean, I don't
It's
think
kind of like, I guess I'm fighting an uphill battle here, I guess, for every person that thinks the same way I do, because
I feel like we're talking two different things though, I don't know, because I'm interested, I want to know more about where you're coming from, because, and the people that you are representing and, in this are coming from.
I wish they would come too.
Right, but I'm happy to hear it from you, I don't, because I do have my feelings on this, which is I feel strongly about trying to be as inclusive as possible, which doesn't mean not supporting students who don't, identify as this, or parents or families who want to have some distance or accommodations from, that. So I'm feeling not, I don't know, maybe not that far apart on it, other than, you know, but I'm not sure that I'm hearing right, because like, what do you feel like, and people who you are representing feel like should be done, or could be done, or what? Because I liked the ideas about, notification to families, here's how we're doing it, here's why we're doing this. That makes total sense to me, but I don't know what else. The other thing I heard was talking to students directly and saying, why are you doing this? And to me, I agree that why, is something that student could very much perceive as negative judgment about their choices, which puts them in a really, really hard position, especially from people that they look to as more, like teachers and stuff like that. So I've heard those two things. Are there other things?
Okay, so put your question in a more simpler. So like what?
Well, what do you like?
What other ideas?
What would be a good solution and resolution, or sort of step to take on this for you?
Well, I can have statistics thrown at me all day long, but I will never change my mind that 3rd and 4th grade and 5th and 6th grade is way too young for them to be even hearing. Why even put, because at 3rd and 4th grade, it's like, yeah, maybe whatever was said, grab this paper if you do this, and this paper if you do this, that probably went over all of their heads, honestly. Probably they just didn't even notice it was said. But it's like, how many times do they have to be told that and hear it before it's just like, what, like, is that just putting an idea in their head and then maybe they're gonna try it out because the idea was put there? It's hard for me to like normalize all of this because it's just so like all of a sudden and so like new, and it's just like, what, like why now? Like what's the catalyst for all this? Because I graduated 11 years ago and I don't have any, there's nobody from my class that's transgender or non-binary, like we maybe gay or lesbian or whatever, but not so. And it's like, why now? Like what's driving this and what's making it such an uptick? And
don't know about that, but I was gonna too young of age to use that language. To me, if you're using boy and girl exclusively, that's also like too young to be, or at any age, like you're also telling those kids there isn't any other, option, even though they may feel that they inhabit a different space, or, so like if you only say boy and girl, then that's telling a set of students something that's, so.
But for years, forever, before this, fraternity, boy and girl has always been used. So
can I jump in on that? Because there's actually a word that got used a lot, and I'll share this from personal experience. It may be shared, you may not be. I started playing basketball 5-6 years old, and starting at 6 years old, I was never called a girl. I was called a tomboy. Right. My entire life. When they talk about me, oh yeah, this is a tomboy. Oh yeah, da-da-da. That led to later, like, assumptions about my sexuality and all these things that I'm just a kid that's playing sports. I don't care about this, but over and over, I didn't get to be a girl growing up. I got to be a tomboy, and I was gendered from, like, misgendered. I didn't get to define. Does that make sense? Like, and I think that's some of the reason that I've thought a lot about this. Like, why do I get so like, in these moments? I didn't have choice in that, right? I got to fit a certain mold, and I was just being me. I like sports and I like simple clothes. I haven't changed much, right? And all those assumptions about my sexuality pissed me off growing up and got me thinking, like, what, am I doing something wrong here? Like, I didn't understand these things, right? This wasn't that, like, over and over. Guess what? I'm straight, I'm married. Like, it didn't plant ideas in my head. It made me wonder if I was doing something wrong in there, right? If instead people were just like, yo, like, let's take the emphasis off gender, and like, kids who play sports are boys and girls, and it doesn't change that, right? But like, it wasn't boy and girl forever. It was these expectations of boys being a certain way and girls being a certain way. My son, I don't know if everybody knows him, but Ron has really freaking long hair, has since he was this big. He is misgendered easily 60% of the time out in public, right? Over and over. He hasn't come to me and said, I think I'm a girl. He's like, people don't understand boys have long hair, right? It doesn't plant new seeds into who we are. We knew who we were. I was a girl. I was a girl who liked basketball. Rowan's a boy. Every time he looks at me, he's like, little boy, and keeps going on with his day. Sense of gender is strong, young. There are a group of kids, and it has not been openly acceptable to be different, right? And now I do think it's more open and inclusive, so more kids are, right, the percentage of kids identified is up, but some of that is because it's open, right? I have family members who, back in the day, this was sexuality, not gender, who never came out and have lived closeted lives because it wasn't there. Guess what? They're not on any data collection of the percentage. That means that number is actually higher than the percentage that's given because people don't self-identify because it's not safe. So, and anyway, I want to share, like, that whole it's always been boy and girl, like, not really. We had other words, and it was placed on people where it wasn't, it didn't, I don't know, it felt like we weren't doing girl right.
Right. And also, like, even if it has been a certain way, if it isn't that way now or going forward, I want to be able to adapt to it. And I don't know, I think there is something, like, you know, whether it's that we are trying to offer language for, you know, expression of something or anything else, like, I feel like not, like, honoring that it is different and it is there is, I don't know, just sort of not adapting. And so.
And we do have more to do tonight. This conversation initially, I was not excited about having it. I thought that it could possibly be uncomfortable, which it clearly is. But we have to, Sue and I decided, yeah, we're gonna bring this up and we will have a conversation. But personally, we can have conversations one-on-one. You know, we can continue having the conversation as individuals outside of the boardroom too. Because, I mean, I view us as a really pretty exceptional group of board members that can have conversations where we don't agree and we still can talk to one another. And I've learned a lot from conversations that I've had with folks on this board who I don't agree with. I feel like I'm learning how to take in information and not just be ready to snap with my opinion. That doesn't help, that never does. So I'd like to take this beyond this meeting. And, you know, I think we have done a pretty good job here doing what we needed to do, but we do have to move on, and some of us probably want to go home. If there's any last words for the good of the order.
Well, do we want to come out of this with something like, or do we want to say we're going to put on the agenda for next time? Because I think that addressing the specific things where if there are places we all agree on actions that we might want to consider, like some notification of general policy and language or something like that, like, I think it'd be nice to take steps that we can take and then to continue talking to find out if there are more, you know, like places that we can act.
I mean, maybe a subcommittee to make recommendations to the board that would take into consideration the opinions that have been addressed here. Because I don't really think we can, unless I'm misreading it, I don't think we're ready to make that step.
No, but I just want to, like, not be like, all right, we're done with this conversation. Just what's next, you know, kind of thing.
Does that feel helpful? Or do we want to have this on the agenda again next month?
I would say that it would be helpful to have some way to continue to discuss any actions that we want to have come out of this discussion.
Right, so like a subcommittee maybe to flesh something out.
Yes.
If we're moving forward, I mean, we are moving forward. We have no choice. We will be moving forward. But how do we want to move forward? What makes people feel the most comfortable? Or do we want to take a breath and break and just sit with it?
I would like to come back next month and talk about it again, and everybody can
Think about it?
think
Yeah,
about
that's
it
what
and
I
then
think, yeah.
kind of come
Okay.
up with ideas and think of them all right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it should just be tonight and done.
No,
because-
it can't be.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for your opinions and perspectives. It's helpful. Public comment on items not on the agenda. I don't have, nothing that has come in through the ethers or email or anything. Okay. Comments from the board.
I did have one thing, I was just gonna, ask you, in the beginning of the year-ish, I kind of asked about, letting parents know about what protocols for like active shooter. I just hadn't seen anything, so I was like, I just wanna be able to reiterate to my kids, like, this is what you do, that way.
Yeah,
You know.
we,
I didn't know if Alice training has been done at all, or.
At the training,
well, so at the beginning of the year, when we did our training in-service, we did send some stuff home at that time. So, or through Parent Square, there was, I can find that and resend it. The one thing I will say that I did not do, and I'm gonna use an excuse that I was homesick, and we need to get where it doesn't matter if I'm homesick, we just hit send on it through Parent Square. We did the training, or not trainings, lockdown drills, thanks, this week, and it's set up so that we hit, hey, we're doing this, talk to your kid tonight with this, but I was not here for it, so that's the reason it didn't go this time, and we need to get where, that's just part of the process, whoever's running that drill. So is that where that's coming from, that you knew there was a drill this week and hadn't
No.
seen it, or, okay.
No, I just remembered, I was like,
Yeah, so I did send some information home about the training.
I have a hard time with Parent Square, I
Back
can't ever
with
figure it
the,
out. I get overwhelmed.
I know, I'm in like 2 different ones.
I'm in the one for Sigisla in here.
Yeah,
I mean, I live
I'm
on
in
Parent Square,
Elmira
I'm
in
like,
here,
what?
so I'm like, I'm not in the right thing.
No, I'm like, there's so many lines to like touch, I can't.
Well, if you click into it one way, I don't
I'm
remember
like, I
which
have
one, then you
folders
get
here on my
everything, they're
phone,
like,
like,
I don't even remember what that was from.
Choose your adventure.
Yeah, it is choose your adventure.
Do you guys do the Alice training with the?
we use I Love You Guys, which is different than Alice. There's a slight difference between there. Alice does the
It is more of the active shooter stuff, isn't it?
well, they're both active shoot. I mean, they both are inclusive of that. We cover those. We have videos that we use inside of that. The main difference between the Alice training and the I Love You Guys is what's the word I want? I want to say role play. I don't know if that's the word that Alice would use, but I'm going to use that word for lack of a bigger vocabulary. But role play drills were like, there's somebody actually coming in and you throw stuff at them. I Love You Guys takes the stance that part isn't the important part of it. The important part is all of the drills in practice and shared communication language and expectations in there. So and they both share that part of it, but it's that role play drill that we don't do, but that's the difference between there. We are I bought a sample of the stuff. The main thing right now is in a lockdown drill. This isn't the right room to. Well, let me use it as an example. But like usually this window and door aren't covered. On the inside of a building, that's not a big. Oh, the space is outside. Let me turn around and remember there's something behind me. So looking in can be hard to do with blinds. We're fine. wish I was out there. So if you look in the you know how there's a door at the end of this hallway? You can see right into Tucker's room there. And so the double, so we're working on the right window covering that makes it hard to see into spaces. So what we do, you know, like all lockdown drills kind of have a go in that corner and get small and quiet. And in a lot of our spaces, especially at the elementary school too, you can see straight into the best corner and to hide in. And so we're working on using a sample window covering this week to see if we like that, and then we'll purchase more of it, and then explore a couple other ideas. But we came back after our in-service drills and said, here's the couple things that we've noticed that seem still less safe, and the window coverings was the number one thing. So we have that we're working on right now, and I'll resend that. I think I'll change the introduction of what we would normally send during a drill and just say, hey, we ran these this week. Talk to your kids. These are the protocols. These are the things, and get them. And it's going to come through parent square, so look for it in there.
Something more simplified. Simplified, like detailed, but
yeah. It was a pretty short and sweet. And there were links to other resources inside of it, but it was intended to keep the text small. And I think on that one, I can do a shorter. I think what I did with it was a shorter message that comes through text, and then more information in the email. And so you can go into that email and kind of open those up. So.
I had one thing. I got some feedback from what's been happening in Dooley's class with like the tribal history and things like that have happened. I know SB 13. I was just curious if any teachers had like stepped up to take on teaching like tribal and shared history. I love that there's always a fine line between wanting to make sure and lifting up the voices of a specific community and putting the burden of educating them on that person. And there's some pieces about Ramil that I just want to talk to you about as a parent, but I think for the sake of the board level, I want to make sure that it's different if you're asking someone like what you were doing what you shared in the elementary school, where they like went home and talked about their Christmas traditions and came back and shared with the class, versus, we have to do a week-long history on, I don't know, like Black history or the Confederated Tribes of Kusalo and Pasaisla Indians. We're gonna make the Black kid teach that, or we're gonna make the Saisla kid teach that. Just finding that balance between lifting up the voices of the community that's being represented versus putting the burden of educating everybody on that. There's just been a little bit of frustration, I think, because that's added a big burden to this particular student, even though it might not be showing, because there is a lot of fun in sharing your culture and presenting tools and bringing canned bull kelp to share. Like, all that is cool and all that is fun, but the idea that this box needed to be checked by this lesson plan and then this student was responsible to do that, I just want to make sure that the teachers that are responsible for this are also doing the work to be the educator and not just pushing it off on the resident, in this case, Native kid. That's just a specific example, but I just don't want that happening in other areas either. And because Kate kind of was that person, and so I feel like there's just been this, like, someone's supposed to, but no one has, but I'm hesitant to just be like, well, so-and-so can just do it. And also, like, how does that reflect on that student? Like, that student has to be a part of the class. Everyone gets maybe the A for listening, but is there something else that's happening? I don't know. I'm just a little bit, I just wanted some.
Yeah, let me,
figuring out.
we're like right on that line of talking about a certain staff member, so I'm gonna not respond, but let me tell you, I just don't want to respond directly about that class, just we're really close to it, but what I will say is, let me follow up and find out that part, and kind of what the structure of that unit was and what the assumptions were, and like, hey, let's be really careful. I will give that feedback for sure. And then figure out, hey, like, work together in the, whatever the design of this unit was, or is, something's not landing quite right there. Let's get to the root of that. And then I will share, we have other people supporting curriculum development in those areas. And so this feedback I'll take back to them as well and say, hey, there's a mismatch right here. Can we dig into it? So, without, I can't be any more specific than that right here, but we can, and then as a parent, we should talk.
That's good.
I was gonna circle back last month. There was when we talked about, I think it was because we talked about restorative justice on here and it wasn't on there this time, but I think you were gonna call us, but I don't
You know
I
what,
didn't get a phone call.
In terms of follow-up for
The situation.
pools and those kind of things,
Yeah.
I think I got to talk to a couple people, but I'm gonna blame that on being outside. So I will follow back up and give some updates onto there.
Yeah, I definitely think it needs to be addressed because I think it's affecting community members now too.
That's part of the complexity of this,
Yeah.
just to name. So
We need to
there's,
get a conversation, like a one-on-one, because it's way more than any of us really.
yeah.
Well, and I think, I'll just say then it is frustrating because I did wait all month to hear about it because I feel like I've been waiting months to find some sense of soon to be, not closure, but something, and so here we are again.
Yeah.
I'll just say that, so.
Yeah, I will say that this one is really complex. And I know I've said that sounds really just.
Well, then, because I just feel like I've heard it's complex for 3 months, so. I'm not trying to, I'm just just tell us then. It's
You'll get it this week, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah. What else? Anything else? Does anybody want to go see the tiny house?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it today.
You saw it already?
I haven't seen it today.
Oh.
No, they're making big progress each day, and it's
Yeah,
so I gotta do.
it's at that fun part where it looks different each time you see it. So.
All right, well, if there's nothing else from the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
second.
So
Or I
moved.
moved, and I'll second it.
Yeah, all right. All those in favor? Yeah.
Taking Michelle's
All right.
words as her suggestion.